Hello and welcome to Doug's Front Porch, a podcast where I get to sit down with friends, old and new, and have honest conversations. Today I welcome to the front porch Chris LaRose, a dear old friend that I guess we have to start with kind of how I know you. The other two episodes that we've already done have been with friends of mine that I grew up with, but I didn't grow up with you. So tell the audience real quick how we got to know each other, Chris.
I think was it sixth grade that you were fifth or sixth grade or something? It was one of the two. But you were my German teacher in sixth grade all the way up through 12th grade when I graduated.
Right. Now that's going back a ways,
Yeah.
showing our age. Chris, where were you born and raised?
I grew up in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. Um,
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
but my dad grew up in Berks County, Pennsylvania, in
So,
Mount Etna.
as a kid, you balanced time between Lock Haven, which is in the central part of Pennsylvania, very different type of geography, uh, very mountainous, a lot of woods and forest. And your father's side of the family all lived in southeastern Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Dutch country, rolling hills, farmland. What was that like for a kid to go like travel between the two locations?
I really liked it. I didn't think it wasn't normal. I thought that's just what people did.
Uh huh.
Because I would live with my parents in Lock Haven, and then the summers they would just drop me off at my grandparents' house, where my dad grew up, and I'd stay there for a month at a time or so here in Pennsylvania Dutch. So it was nice. I liked the mountains, and I liked to hear all the PA Dutch stuff when I came down to Myerstown, and the big wide open field seemed crazy to me compared to Lock Haven having pine trees everywhere.
Right. So one thing that you and I share in common is that the majority of our childhoods were spent around older people. I had a younger brother, but we didn't have any first cousins. And we didn't have any neighbors nearby that we would go and play with. A lot of my time as a youth was spent among older people,
Hmm.
whether it was my grandparents or friends of my grandparents. And you had that similar type of childhood, didn't you?
Yeah, all my best friends were my dad's best friends, and they were, uh, oh gosh, probably 50 to 90 years old. So,
How how did that having that kind of a childhood and being around that type of people, how did that affect you? How did that make you the person that you are today?
I think it has everything to do with how I am today. Because when I was, 8 or 9 years old, I'd be hanging out with my dad and five or six of his really old buddies in a garage working on motorcycles, hearing blues and old country music, and having stories told to me by World War II vets and Vietnam vets. And so I had a deep appreciation for everything old stuff and old people and old stories and history. And I think that has everything to do with my character, my whole life, because the songs that I write are about history and about the salt of the earth people. And yeah, I just kind of have a firm footing in the past.
Did that provide for a little bit of a clash, like when you went to school and then interacted with your peers because you weren't maybe watching the same TV shows they were watching, or you weren't listening to the same music that they were listening to? Did you find that was difficult to make friends, or not really?
Oh my God, yeah. Uh, Yeah, I didn't really have a lot of friends in school, and I didn't particularly like people my age. I was used to hanging out with 50-plus-year-olds that talked to me like I was a real person, even though I was a kid. And then you'd go and hang out with kids, and you'd get tired of hearing about the stupid drama and kind of sophomoric ways of viewing the world when you got done talking to a Vietnam vet who, realized the importance of everything.
Right.
Um, And yeah, so I'd go to school and kids would be talking about Pokemon, and I didn't know what the heck that was. And I'd be trying to talk to them about, history, World War II, or airplanes and things like that. And yeah, didn't work out well.
It didn't work out well. You make it through high school. I say goodbye. I keep teaching. You move on, and you go into Kutztown University. And what did you study when you went to Kutztown?
I studied German and theater. Had started out as a theater major, and then with a German minor, and then about 3 weeks into it, I just decided to dual major, and so that's what I did.
Was the decision to be a drama major an easy decision? Was that something that was like this is what makes sense to me, this is what I want to do? Because I think the cliche is, if you're studying art history or drama or theater, those are degrees that you'll never be able to do anything with. For most people outside of those fields, they view it that way. Did you get pushback from people when you would tell them that, oh, I'm majoring in drama, or didn't you find that or experience that?
Yeah, I got a lot of that. A lot of people were saying, well, why don't you go major in something like blah and blah, and then use theater as a hobby or something? I said, well, I don't want to. And after having friends that were, in their 50s and 60s and older my whole life who lost friends at 18, 19, and 20, I figured, I don't know if I'm going to make it that long, so I'm going to do what I want to right now. And the cool part is I knew I wanted to be involved in theater since high school. And my dad was an actor and a storyteller and a musician for 30 years. And so he, got me hip to the idea that theater was useful everywhere, because he'd be working in a corporate setting or a business room setting, and there'd be people who would really know their stuff, but they couldn't hold people's attention. They'd lose control of a crowd. And then my dad was able to reel in an entire group of people and get them focused again, and then throw the focus back to the person that was trying to do a presentation or something. He'd do that all the time. And he says, that's theater. That's what I learned how to do when I was acting. So I knew that the theater world was a lot more useful than the average person would give it credit, because it teaches you how to not be afraid of public speaking and how to deal with groups of people, and
Also how to articulate emotions, and storytelling is huge. You're right. And to me, the older I get, the more I look at life as nothing more than we are all telling a story, right? I mean, isn't that what life is to a certain extent?
yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, because everything that you do or experience throughout the day is just storytelling. Like if you go to work and tell somebody about your weekend, that's storytelling. If you're at work and you tell somebody about a meeting you had 10 minutes ago, that's storytelling. Um, if you're telling your grandkids about what life was like during COVID-19, you know, that's storytelling. So it's useful, and
Yeah.
it's really important because it's what keeps our history. I mean, a lot of cultures had people who that was their job. They were the history keepers. They didn't write this down. It was just the one person in the town that knew the history of everybody's family and what the group of people did. So storytelling, I think, is really important. I view it as the carrier of morals and the keeper of history. Um,
Yeah.
and it gets kind of downplayed when you look at TV shows and things, and it's just all this sensationalized, crazy, you know, empty calorie entertainment, and it kind of loses the perspective.
Right. Well, that's a perfect segue, because let's talk now a little bit about what you do now. You are a professional musician, songwriter, um, performer. How I think you've hit on a lot of the things that why you do what you do. However, let's start with this question. So your main instrument is the guitar. Uh, how did you learn how to play guitar?
Um, I'm trying to think.
Well, I mean, right off the bat, did you, as a young kid, were you going to lessons with a teacher and then practicing, every night of the week, or was it more self-taught, or
It was a little bit of both. My dad got me my first guitar, and it was a uh, really beat up, junky one that was really, really hard to play. I mean, the strings were about a mile high, so you had to squeeze with all your might to get something out of it. Um, and so he taught me some chords and things like that. And then later on, I got an electric guitar when I was, 12 or so, and wanted to be like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I'd watch a bunch of his videos while he was playing concerts and hold the guitar and try to noodle on stuff. But I was really not a good guitar student. I had some lessons, but I didn't practice the way they wanted me to. Um, so I put it down for years, probably 5 or 6 years, and then I think it was 10th grade or 11th grade, I picked it up and I learned one song that just really kind of resonated with me. It was the one where I finally learned how to sing. Like something clicked and then it just felt right. And then I had all the emotive stuff with it, with the storytelling, and the guitar just kind of got me all riled up. And that's what got me started playing guitar seriously and uh, deciding to do it for a living.
So what was your what is your practice regimen? Like do you practice every day? How much time a day do you practice?
It's hard to say because there's really no system to it. If I'm playing a lot of shows, last year I played 70 shows. Um, so if I'm playing shows regularly that are all 3-4 hours long, then that alone keeps me practiced up for the stuff that I know. For things that I don't know, I I like a song. If I'm learning a new song, I'll sit down and I'll work on listening to it, a dozen times to get the lyrics. The lyrics are how I remember what I play and when I play it. So if I don't know the lyrics, I usually don't know how the song goes. Um,
Is your memorization process one of just repetitiveness, or do you have a trick? Because one thing that always has impressed me about you, one of the many things that has always impressed me about you, is your ability to memorize these songs. I mean, we play together, and I have no idea how many songs you have in your head, but it constantly blows me away that you can just pull a song out of what seems to me like nowhere, and you not only know how to play it, you know all four verses and all the words. So how do you go about memorizing that stuff? What's your process?
it's different than I think people would expect it to be. I have probably about 150 songs that I could do right off the top of my head. And my dad, in his prime, he had about 900, which is astounding. But what I do is I really don't learn songs that don't get me emotionally involved in them. And it's usually that emotional involvement in the song that makes them stick. If there's a song that I, kind of like, but it doesn't really move me, then I could sit there and read the lyrics 1,000 times, or sing the song 1,000 times and I can't remember it. But then there's songs that just really drive home, and I'll have it the first time I remember hear it.
That's
So
crazy.
it's yeah, I don't know how it works. It's kind of like lightning for me. Like when I started this blues band a year ago, um, some of the songs I had immediately, and then there were songs that were simple pop tunes that everybody knows, like "Twist and Shout" by the Beatles. And every show, I got to look up the lyrics before I go on. Be like, okay, yeah, it's got this many verses. This goes here, and then it's still a shot in the dark if I remember it. But I think it has to do with the storytelling. Um, Songs that obviously tell a story, like if each verse is a chapter of a book, then it's easy to remember those. Like a ballad, I could remember a ballad 100 verses long, but something like Twist and Shout, when you got to figure out which "Come On Baby Now" goes where, it doesn't work for me.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your writing process. So you've written a lot of songs, and they're all quality songs. Um, how do you write a song? What does that process look like for you?
Um, when I write stuff, if I'm playing guitar, a lot of times I'll get into like this this meditative state after rehearsing for a while. If I'll pull a guitar out and I'll just be doing some of the finger picking stuff, like the old blues stuff, and it could be a 3-note lick, just like 3 or 4 note lick, and I play that over and over and over again for 2 or 3 hours, just because it's a lot of fun to try to get it right and try to make it swell and move and breathe, because you can do a lot more with 3 notes than you can with 100 notes. So I'll do that for 2 hours, and once you get into the groove of it, after about a half an hour, your brain starts wandering on thoughts, things that you've heard about, or stories that you've read about, or you'll just be thinking about your past, or you'll just summon up like a memory of an emotion, of like what it felt like to be really sad, or what it felt like to be longing for something. And so I usually start with the music first, and then the feeling that I want to have in that song, and then I'll sift through my memories and thoughts and stories, looking for something that'll fit into it. So if I wanted to have a song that's like spooky and Halloween themed, like that helps me narrow down what topics I could sing about. Like I'm certainly not going to sing about the grocery store or something.
Mm-hmm. Do
Yeah.
you find it easier? What's easier to you, writing a sad song or writing a happy song? Or doesn't it really make it? Is there no difference?
I don't think it really has too much of a difference. I do find it a lot easier to write goofy songs that I'm not terribly like emotionally attached to. Like last time I was over at your place, we did that toilet paper blues song, and I think that took us all 10 or 15 minutes or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's about right. It came together pretty quickly. But that
But
was kind of like a nonsense song. Yeah, it wasn't. There was no deep story to that. That's for sure.
yeah, so stuff like that kind of comes together easy. But if I'm trying to write, like if I have a really awesome melody that I love and I know what feeling I want to make it have, um, whether it's happy or sad or longing, anything really, it can be really difficult. I've had songs take me 10 minutes to do, and I've had them take me 4 or 5 years to do. I wrote my painted window song about my grandfather. That took me, I think, 3 years to finish. I had the the chorus in my head, but couldn't figure out what else to say until my dad told me the stories of what happened, and then they kind of bounced around my brain for a while, and then another year or two later, I came up with something. It really does feel like lightning striking sometimes, because I can make stuff rhyme and have clever wordplay, but I'm really picky about stuff. I don't want it to be low hanging fruit. I want it to work, but I also don't want it to sound like I'm stretching to make it work. I want it to be flowing and natural, and that's something that I don't know if you can rush or force into existence. I have a friend, Joanne Shenandoah, who won a couple Grammys for Native American music, and her daughter Leah Shenandoah. And they, when I told them about this feeling, they said that it's, to them, they believe the songs already exist. They're out there, but they choose when they come to you. And it really does feel like that.
There's a famous quote. I'll probably mess it up, but Hank Williams Sr. was asked one time, how do you write those sad songs so well that you write? And his quote to the person that was interviewing him said, "I just hold the pencil and God does the writing." So I think that's a great quote, and it kind of talks this idea, like what you just talked about it. I think some people have a gift. Absolutely, some people have a gift, and others just have such a hard time understanding how someone can have that gift. I've been in the same room with you writing music, watching you through this process. Sometimes they've been silly songs like we talked about earlier, but other times we wrote some serious songs together too. And watching your process, it is, I understand why you say that, because out of nowhere you'll just come up with this line, or I'll suggest something and you'll sit on, you'll mull it for a little bit, and then out of nowhere you'll be like, no, let's do this. And I'll step back and be like, yeah, that's so much better. And I've asked you, where'd that come from? I don't know. It just sounds good. Let's go with this. It's such a crazy songwriting. I think is such a crazy process for anyone outside of music to even begin to kind of like wrap their head around. It's so interesting.
I think,
but I guess, go ahead.
I think there are two big things that really stand out to me for songwriting. One of them is that I like the shapes of sounds. Like there are certain words, if something is a round sounding word or a sharp, jagged sounding word, they have shapes to them. And like I like to try to piece them together so that they lead into each other well. And so I can have an idea of what shape I want, but don't know what the words are going to be saying yet, or have an idea of what I want them to say, but don't have the right words to do it. So that helps, because music is, tones, and it's tone colors and things like that. So I do that with what I want the phrase to sound like too, to help me dial it into what words I'm going to use to make the phrase. And then what was the other thing I wanted to say? Well, I can't remember now.
Well, let me ask you this question. You've written a lot of music. You listen to a lot of music. How do you know when a song, let's say you're working on a song or you're done working on a song, how do you know that it's good?
I don't know.
Is it just simply other people saying, "Oh man, Chris, that's an awesome song," or is there something inside you that says, "I'm okay. I finished this song. That's good. This is a good one."
Yeah, it's more of that. It's
okay.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah, it's really hard to explain, because there's a definite feeling like when you finish a song that is really good, you just know it. And it feels right. It just feels right, like you couldn't have done anything better. Even if you have songs that are almost there, you'll be like, yeah, 90% of this is right, but I don't like this one line. It's going to be good enough for now. And then I've had songs that I wrote that I was just like, well, they're filler songs. They're not bad. They're not great. They're good enough, I guess. And then they turned out to be people's favorite songs. And then some of the songs that I was the most proud of got overlooked, and people don't listen to them so much. So it's really weird to figure out what it takes to make a good song, because everybody's taste is different. But
sure.
Yeah, you know when something moves you. And when you write something, whether it's a poem or a song or something, you know if it moves you, and that's what people see, I think. I think they want to see the artist be moved by the work they do, as opposed to something formulaic that fits all the criteria for being technically good.
Sure. Well, let's change gears a little bit. What do you do to relax? What's your go-to blow off steam?
Sometimes music, but sometimes music feels like work.
Okay.
Because I do it for a living and I've done it so much, so I don't listen to music the same way people do. I'm always sitting there thinking, how'd they do that? That's cool. Can I do that? Can I take this part and use this? So I'm very analytical about music, and I think about it in terms of performance value. If it's a song that I can hold a bar with, or is it a song I can hold a coffee shop with? So sometimes it feels like I gotta work by listening to music or playing music, but then other times I sit down and I put on Little Walter records or Muddy Water albums, and I'll play guitar or play harmonica with them, and that feels great. I think one of the biggest things that's been with me my whole life, that I fell out of touch with but finally got back into it, was riding motorcycles.
Uh-huh.
I just got back from a ride on the 65 Triumph today.
Yeah, riding motorcycle has a good way of clearing your mind, doesn't it?
Oh my
gosh, it does for me anyway. I often see the sticker or a T-shirt say, anyone who rides a motorcycle doesn't need a therapist.
I
So
I think that's true. With this whole COVID thing going on, even though I'm pretty isolated from the world, I don't really watch the news or check all the Facebook stuff because it just gets me stressed out, and I don't
sure.
need that kind of stress. But even being removed from it, you can feel in the energy around you that everything's a little tense, and I've been feeling that for about the past month and a half. And my buddy Ryan was helping me restore my dad's motorcycle, the Triumph, and he brought it up yesterday, and we went on a 50-mile ride. And I'll tell you what, within the first 10 miles, I completely forgot about all that stuff going on. And
Right.
I was just feeling so good. I was like, heck, Ryan, let's go another 200 miles, swing into all of our friends. And I forgot that you're not allowed to do
Can't
that right now.
can't do that. Yeah, right. Well, there'll be time for that in the future. So let me ask you this. Your music, your art, that is your message to the world. But what specifically do you hope to pass on to future generations?
I think it's really, really important to remember history. Um, that's one of the things that I see thrown away so quickly. Uh, Everything these days is thrown away quickly. They don't want to. People don't repair things. They just buy a new one and throw away the old, or they'll have something that's old and works well, but it's just not the newest. And so I see systems and ideas and thoughts and beliefs and products kind of left behind, only to find out later that they thought, oh, wow, there was some value in this thing that we threw away 10 years ago. Maybe we ought not have done that. And I want to be one of the people that keeps it around so that when they realize that it had value, that it's not gone. Like these songs, a lot of the songs I think are really important because folk music and the ballads, it tells you a lot about where you came from and a lot about your history. Like a history book will tell you what happened, when it happened, and where it happened. But a song will tell you what happened, when it happened, where it happened, but they'll also tell you what they felt during it and what they said privately amongst each other. It was a more complete record in some ways than a book. Um, and it connects you with those people back then. When you hear about the Great Depression in a book, you're like, okay, that sucks. But if you hear about the Great Depression in a song with a farmer talking about losing his farm because of the word progress, you start wondering, what's that mean? And then you start learning more about history. So it keeps things around and you can really identify with the people. And I think that's what's important, is the people of our generation identifying with the people in the generations that came before us, because then it humanizes our history. There's not so much resentment between generations then, and it just prepares us to make a better future because we have all this information. We've learned lessons the hard way, and we don't have to redo it. It's still
Mm-hmm.
around.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's a really that's powerful. Thanks for vocalizing that. It was really, yeah. I end all of my interviews with 10 questions that really are not. I mean, we talked about some heavier stuff so far, but this is more just, I'm going to ask you a question. I just want you to answer them. Don't think about the answer. Say whatever comes to mind first. It's like a theater game almost. Are you ready, Mr.
Yeah,
LaRose?
let's do it.
All right, question number 1. What is your morning drink of choice?
Coffee.
And how do you take your coffee?
Black as can be and really strong.
Good. Question number 2. This might be a difficult question for you. I'm curious about this. Who is your go-to musical artist or group?
I have two of them. I absolutely love T-Bone Walker and Little Walter.
So there are 2 names that probably a lot of people don't know, and it's a good opportunity for you after this interview's over. Go look those guys up. Say their names one more time again, Chris.
T-Bone Walker, he was a really good blues guitar player in the late 40s and early 50s. It was blues that was still swing, like big band swing style, but bluesy. And then Little Walter was the man who made harmonica a respectable instrument again. It was kind of viewed as a toy, and then he started playing blues on the harmonica and played with Muddy Waters, and really just kind of changed the entire world of blues and everything that came after it.
Cool. All right, next question. What movie can you watch over and over again and it never gets old?
The Great Escape.
Oh, great answer. All right. What is the last thing you read?
Last thing I read, book-wise or just words?
Either.
Either.
Either or.
My car registration.
Okay.
But,
there you go.
But book-wise, I'm working on a book about Little Walter's life, which is pretty exciting.
Cool. What's your favorite pizza topping?
I don't eat pizza anymore. But,
That's right. But when you did...
I always like black olives on pizza.
Ooh, there you go. Me too. All right, number 6. Laying on the beach or going for a hike?
I'd rather go for a hike, actually.
Okay. Number 7. You invite me over for dinner. What are you cooking?
Definitely red beet eggs are in there.
Okay.
I guess
just
that's a full meal. If it's just the boys, it's just coffee and red beet eggs.
Oh, we'll have a good time that night.
I mean, if you're bringing your lady, I probably ought to make a vegetable, but...
Yeah. Well, the red beets.
Yeah, that's good. That's whatever.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. All right, number 8. What is one of your dream vacation destinations?
I think I'm pretty lucky in that I got to do them all already. I've always wanted to go to Germany, and through music, I've done a tour in Germany and lived there, and I've always wanted to go to Memphis, and music took me there, and always wanted to go to New Orleans and Vegas and Washington, and music took me there too. So I'm really lucky that because of doing music for a living, I can kind of go to these places and work there, all in the same trip, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Number 9. What is something that you are afraid of?
I think I recently figured that out. I never thought I was afraid of this when I was younger, but now that I'm getting older, I kind of am. The idea of getting older. And it's not really even the idea of getting older. I admire older folks. It's just your body starting to wear out on you. That's what I'm afraid of. Like, I'm not that old. I'm only 30, but I already have carpal tunnel and hearing loss from doing music. And so one of the things I'm afraid of in the future is that if I get older, will it keep going? Will I still be able to play? Can I still hear the notes? Can I still sing? Things like that. Or can I still hold a guitar when I'm 50? So I don't know if that counts as a fear of getting older or just a fear of wearing my body out.
Well, maybe a little bit of both, I guess. Yeah, that's a different answer.
And I think a lot of people have that too. They just don't notice it.
That's true. All right, last question. What job other than your current one would you love to have?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it because, like I said, I was lucky enough to do what I've always wanted to do and didn't have time to think about what I'd be doing if I didn't do music and acting.
But like a dream job. Like, oh, it would be so awesome to be able to do this for a living.
Well, I always loved the idea of flying. I thought it would be kind of cool to be an airline pilot, or if I'm going back to my teenage years of daydreaming wild and crazy jobs, I would think being a bush pilot in like Alaska or something would be cool.
That would be cool.
Or
all right,
a tour guide or something.
Yeah, right. Okay. Tell our listeners, if they want to learn more about you and your music, where they can go to find that information.
Well, my website's always a good first stop. It's chrislarosemusic.com. And then Facebook is probably the most active thing. You just look for my name, Chris LaRose Music, on Facebook. And then I post all the shows that I'm doing and updates about pretty much everything going on.
And people can purchase your albums there as well if they'd like to get some of your music too.
Yeah, and I'm really easily accessible too. So if people send me a message or give me a call, I work best the old school way like that. But I still do some technology if I have to. But yeah, and then I have a lot of music projects that I work on. I do the solo music, and then you and I do the Broken Spokes old timey music. And then my lady friend and I do uh, old blues and jazzy stuff as a duo. And then I have the 4-piece blues band, which is full electric with guitar and drums and bass and harmonica, and we do all the 50s and 60s blues and Woodstock stuff together.
And I can attest it's all good. That is for sure.
Well, thanks.
Chris, it is always a pleasure talking to you. I've known you for so many years now, and
How many
I've
years
worked
is it now?
I don't know. We're not going to do the math, but our relationship is unique in that it went from teacher and student to friends to you teaching me a lot of things too. So we've been able to go full circle on that, I think, over the years. So I appreciate you coming on today, and it was great. It was great talking to you, Chris. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you too. You know what? I think it's been 15 years, Doug.
There you go. You pulled the number out faster than I could.
That's crazy. Oh, man.
Well, thank you for listening to Doug's Front Porch, a conversational podcast with your host, Doug Maidenford. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Also, please feel free to tell all of your friends. I'd also like to give an extra special shout out to Alyssa Hilton, who is responsible for the creation of all the artwork that you find on our social media pages and on our website. And also a special shout out to the Broken Spokes, whose music grace our intro and outro for each episode. Follow along on Facebook at Doug's Front Porch, and I'll see you all next time on My Front Porch.